The story of Australia's First Peoples is the oldest continuing human story on Earth. Through countless generations of songlines, to connection with country and spirit, to resistance, struggle and survival, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander story is vast, inspiring and always evolving. This podcast series presents a collection of First Peoples voices, sharing their experiences, achievements, hopes and beliefs. These are the real stories of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australia. Hi, I'm Mayrah and you're listening to the Real podcast series. Today, I'm very excited to be chatting to journalist and current Today Show entertainment reporter, Brooke Boney.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the Real podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we're very excited in particular because you're a very important woman, very busy times. This is our third attempt to get you, but we just wanted to keep chatting with you, so we'll keep coming in. And you're fresh off the Today Show this morning.
Yeah,
how are you feeling?
I've got a full face of makeup and a hair full of hairspray over here. So I don't know, feeling very, very wired. Only onto my second coffee though.
Well, that's good. And in your running gear, ready to go for some exercise after this?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to try to scrape my face off and then go for a run this afternoon because, I'm all about that fitness.
And so is that what your normal day looks like these days?
Yeah, well, I think you have to exercise every day, obviously to stay fit, but just for your own mental health as well. Otherwise, you end up just working and sleeping and it's no way to live. You've got to get outside and get some fresh air.
And at the moment, you're doing a lot of running, I know.
I'm doing a lot of running because I committed to the city to surf and I started flat-footed, pardon the pun, because I hadn't run for so long because, it's so busy to fit exercise into this job, like where you go outside and do stuff. Normally I do like yoga or stretching or, stuff that's inside. So this has been amazing doing the training for it. I did this thing called the Couch to 5Ks.
Yes.
Have you heard of it?
Yes.
It's so good. Everyone should do it. Every single person, because it means that you're just a runner now. It's not just for like super fit people.
It's such a mental block, isn't it, that you think you're a runner or you're not?
Yes.
So up until a couple of years ago, I was not a runner, but a bunch of kids from the Central Coast community that my husband works with, they wanted to go and do a half marathon, so 21.5 Ks in Hawaii. So I trained with them and then went over and did it. And you go, I've done it. I can do it now.
I'm a runner.
Yeah. So not all year round, but during certain months you definitely kind of get into that zone. But I find running is more of a mental game than a physical. You're physically able to do it.
Oh, totally. Like sometimes I'll get home from a run and I will feel like, oh no, I can't go any further. And then I'll get home and I'll be fine like 2 minutes later. So I'm like, obviously it's not physical. I could have kept going like twice as long, but you just, convince yourself that you need to stop. Do you know who's inspiring as a runner? Anita Heiss.
She is.
Isn't she a gun?
Absolute gun. Has done the New York Marathon. Is that in your future?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know about that. I think I'm going to struggle through 14Ks, let alone 42.
Well, I think there's less hills than the New York Marathon.
That's true. Apparently the city to surf is so hard because of the big Heartbreak Hill, like halfway through. So apparently it's more like a half marathon than a 14K run.
Yes.
But I'll tell you how I feel when I've
good luck.
done it. Yeah.
And well done for getting behind that. You get behind lots of causes along your career, as you have done. Recently read about you're with Witchery, you're with the Go Foundation. Tell us a little bit about your role with the Go Foundation.
Well, when the boys, Mickey O and Adam Goods, finished up playing footy, they wanted to do something to give back to the community, and the best way that they, that they thought they could contribute was through Indigenous education. And so they set up their foundation, the Go Foundation. And I've known the guys for a while through different roles that I've done. I did some work with Recognise and I'm a Swannies ambassador as well, so I knew them from that. And then they asked me to be an ambassador for the Go Foundation because, I talk a lot about the power of education and the transformational effect it has, like not only on individuals, but, when the oldest kid or, the mum or whatever goes through uni or through TAFE, and then you see the impact that it has like on the rest of the kids or the cousins or, even the aunties and uncles. And even the evidence points to that as well. So we know that once kids, sort of get through tertiary education and then go on to full-time employment, or, any sort of after-school education, that all of the outcomes improve. So, you live longer, you're more likely to own a house, your health is better. Like all of these things, the statistics after education are so much better than for kids who don't achieve that. So it's very important.
And we were just talking about being in the studio here and our mics and our setup. And one thing we share in common is that we both spent some time at Koori Radio earlier in our
live and deadly.
Just around, we probably should have done this at Koori Radio today, just for a trip down memory lane. But that was back in, I used to do it at Marrickville Hospital when it was there. Were you there or you were at Redfern?
I was at the Redfern one on Cope Street. Mm-hmm. So I think they'd maybe moved a year or two before I started.
And looking back on that girl at Koori Radio at the start of your media career and then kind of fast forward to now, what kind of journey in a reasonably short space of time?
Yeah, well, that would have been 2019, nearly 10 years ago, so 9 years ago, that I would have been there interning, doing the Black Chat program with Paulette Whitten, mm-hmm. Who's so lovely and just like such a great help and mentor. But when I think of my attitude towards work and the way that I sort of carried myself then, I feel like I'm just always like that. Maybe I'm, slightly more confident now than what I was then. But I'm still that sort of really eager to please, always learning new things, always trying to push myself to be a little bit better and, always looking at the next thing, like always sort of, focusing on goals and pushing myself further. So even though I know that my career has, progressed and I've done, a whole bunch of different things and, and I mean progressed in the sense that I work on a show that has a, much bigger audience because I have like the utmost respect for that station and the shows that they produce. I think they're really important and excellent quality. But I still feel like the same person in a sense. Does that...
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't
change who you are. You can put yourself in a different environment, but you're still that girl that's there kind of donating your time a lot of the time when doing community radio. I find community radio is a great way to start in media because you really have to, hold the show for an hour. It's great kind of training over time.
It's the same amount of nerves too when you open up a mic and you're live on air. It doesn't matter if there's 1,000, 10,000 or 2 million people listening, you still feel like the same sort of pressure, to do your best job and that you're live. It's like, okay, this is going to happen now. Here we are.
Have there been any moments while you've been live that you can recall where you went, oh no, I'm not quite sure if I pulled that one off? Or...
So many. I mean, I still, occasionally you'll be doing something and you can't hear or like, the live thing drops out or you don't get your script in time. Even just a couple of months ago, I was up in Queensland on an OB with the Today Show and our camera auto cue thingy went down because you're out on location. It's hot. Sometimes the equipment breaks down and, normally you have your script printed out. But I didn't have my script printed out. And so I was like, and it is Thursday. Welcome back. You're watching Today. What do we got? You just sort of ad lib and make do. And I guess, that's probably one way that I've changed. I don't know if I would have been able to do that when I first started at Koori Radio. I think I would have squealed, turned the mic down and then just played Jessica Mauboy song.
That's good advice for anyone out there. And you've covered a lot. I remember your time as a political correspondent. You've done a couple of, what do you call them? A couple of election campaigns, both with KRAD and Second Time Round. And I've heard at other interviews that you've given about how you just felt so much more, in control and experienced the second time round. Can you give us some advice on anyone out there who might be interested in going down the kind of media politics kind of avenue about what your advice would be around that?
Oh, absolutely do it. And, do it as, sort of get the foundations down pat first and do some work in newsrooms or media in like a capital city where you can learn a lot from the people around you. But then definitely get to Canberra as soon as possible because there's nothing like the pressure of those environments to really force you to grow and to force you to be across your brief. And So many of the people who are down there are really at the top of their game and, some of the best journalists in the country. So you learn a lot about the way that they groom contacts, about how they learn about their brief, about how they, get information from people and from departments and from the general public about something that you just would never come across in a regular newsroom. I think it's because, people are doing shifts and, you end up chasing press conferences a lot more or press releases, whereas down there you're sort of it's a different sort of journalism. If you're covering around, it's really the best way to learn how to do that. I think it really sets you up with good skills. So get down there as soon as possible. Do a few years down there so you can get the full election cycle and you sort of see how the campaigns work and the narrative arc over this, the course of someone's, political career pans out. It's fascinating. But I'm a nerd though, so I sort of live for that stuff.
No, that's good that you're a nerd and to know about power and how that's communicated to everyone and influences how they vote and how our country is shaped. Is that what drew you to wanting to be a political journalist?
Yeah, I think seeing how decisions are made was a big part of it. And, you're in this place where one person, is talking about this thing and they have this huge amount of power. And particularly like for us as Black people to then know the impact of one decision or, one committee or, even the parliament itself. There's not that many people in there. So, this group of a couple hundred people making these decisions about a few 100,000 people. It's a pretty weird and magnificent thing to see. And that drew me to it, but also like the history of the place, I think, as well, I was really attracted to.
And was it hard to do your job as an Aboriginal person because you feel so close to community and reporting for your community and the decisions they're making, are going to directly affect you, where some, policies might not?
Yeah. I think, in a sense, we're sort of, you and I, we're sort of protected from a lot of the worst of those decisions. But it is a really weird thing when you're standing in a press conference with someone and you see them talking about something that means a lot to you and you can't really betray any emotion around it and you can't sort of react or anything like that. But you know that there are people that you love and, people that you want to fight for and people that you care about who will be affected by it. And you have to summon all of the professionalism and strength and stoicism that you can to report on it. And because that's, ultimately what your job is. You're there to sort of tell people what happened that day, not to put your spin on it or to say, this is bad or this is good. I'm not the ultimate source of all wisdom or anything like that. But, when you are seeing someone say something or doing something that's hurtful to the people that you love, it is unbelievably hard to sort of stand there face to face with them. But it does teach you to sort of hold your tongue and to be very composed in the face of that sort of stress and confrontation, which is a great skill to have.
Absolutely, and it's come in handy, and we've all seen the amazing job that you did dealing with the question that we all do every January. It's kind of like Groundhog Day comes around and we're expected to say the same things every time. Our listeners kind of know what that's all about. Which
is an excellent movie, by the way, Groundhog Day. I don't want to say anything bad about Groundhog Day. I love that movie.
Sorry, didn't mean to. But it has come in handy during your kind of time fast forwarding to reporting on entertainment. Would you prefer to interview a politician or someone in the entertainment industry?
It takes the same amount of skill. It's exactly the same thing. You're sort of stepping in there and you're trying to win someone over or, find some sort of common ground with someone that you've maybe never met before. And you've normally got like 7 minutes to interview them because they're so busy. So you step in, you're like, "G'day, I'm Brooke. Nice to meet you." And then you're asking them something that's like deeply personal or trying to get a reaction from them that seems as though you know each other really well. And it's the same thing. So, I don't know about the I don't really go in with much seriousness or like I'm just a rat bag. I'm very silly in these cases. Like I interviewed Samuel L. Jackson earlier in the year, and he was a junket. You're doing one after the other, so you sort of get it. Like he's tired. He couldn't be bothered talking to anyone. And I was like, okay, I know I've got about 8 minutes to do this interview, and I probably need about 2 minutes of it. So then I was just like, are you right, Samuel? Are you right? And then I just was very silly for like a minute. And then he was fine. Like he sort of like eased into it. But yeah, I guess that's the tough part of having to do this job is, it doesn't matter who you're talking to, if it's, the Prime Minister of Australia or Samuel L. Jackson, that you sort of, you're trying to do the same thing, just like bring the humanity out of them or like find some sort of common ground that people can relate to.
And you're 8 months in to the new job. Mm-hmm. How is it settling with you?
It's a big step. It's a very big change from the audience that I was talking to before. I think that's probably the biggest difference. People always say stuff like, oh, how's TV or how are the early mornings? And I'm like, well, I've been doing early mornings for a while now, so I'm pretty much used to that. TV is fine. Like the only difference is that people know what you look like as well as what you sound like, which is, when I was on Triple J, I guess people probably didn't know what I looked like so much. But the biggest shift for me has been the audience that you're talking to. And so the audiences at Triple J and ABC and SBS, they were all sort of audiences that I'd spoken to before or that I'd sort of felt were like a natural home for me. And so to go to Channel 9, it's a commercial audience, it's really, sort of very broad church and, a really different group of people. It's been challenging, obviously, with the Australia Day stuff. It wasn't the sort of reaction that I would have expected, but in hindsight, it's exactly the sort of reaction that you can expect. But I think it's a real honour because people are inviting you into their homes every day. And I know it's just that you're flicking on the remote and watching TV as you get ready, but you're still in their home. And so to start to build the relationship with people is a pretty special thing.
And I suppose the other part of that is people wouldn't necessarily, because you're reporting on entertainment and you're fun and gorgeous and effervescent and, you're in their homes every day. But it's not like, oh, that's an Aboriginal person that we read about in the paper that's X, Y and Z. But he's just another normal person having issues, you're able to speak to political and Aboriginal affairs issues, but you're just like everyone else. So it's kind of breaking down lots of barriers without it being confrontational or, something too far a step for mainstream Australia seeing an Aboriginal woman on the telly every morning.
And that's sort of what I wanted to do by going there, and sort of what I hope to achieve is that people will come to realise that, hey, we're just like you. Who knew? But, it's not, I don't want to, it sounds like I'm letting people off the hook. It's not the sort of mass audience's fault that they have certain views of Indigenous people. It's just that they've never really seen it before. And so to have the opportunity to sit in someone's lounge room and make jokes about Chris Hemsworth's biceps or, a dog riding a skateboard or, whatever it is that we're talking about that morning on the Today Show, it's a really big step forward for me. Because, like you said, I'm not up there being like, give us back our land, I want land rights, or, and that's absolutely worthy. And, people who protest, I take my hat off to them. But, to be able to contribute to normal everyday conversations and people go, oh, yeah, isn't she that girl who's on the Today Show? Oh, yeah, also she happens to be Aboriginal. It's a pretty amazing thing. And I think, it's a big opportunity for us.
Absolutely. And it's about you being Brooke. Without kind of whatever nationality. Every other person on the panel doesn't have to wear their nationality, but unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, you're in that position. Are you feeling a lot of pressure to represent the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community in a certain way?
Well, I think, we all sort of wear that hat all the time, right? Like I am I am an Aboriginal woman. There's no separating me from my indigeneity, and I wouldn't want people to anyway. But, as far as being like a representative or a spokesperson for all Aboriginal people, that is a lot of pressure. And so sometimes when people are like, oh, can you tell me about this thing, or can you give us an explanation of this? All you can do is like the very best job of explaining what your perspective is on it, or explaining an alternative perspective to what's already out there, without trying to say this is the one view, this one homogenous view that all Indigenous people share, and I'm here to deliver it, for everyone else to see. I don't ever want it to be that, and I hope that no blackfellas ever think like, oh, she can't speak on behalf of me, because I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone. I just want to speak on behalf of myself, but offer a different perspective to what is available. And, I hope that I'm doing people proud. I think I am, but it's a lot of pressure to balance those.
You certainly are making us proud.
Oh.
So thank you. And we've chatted a couple of years ago around the importance of media in perpetrating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to us, how we see ourselves, but also how everyone else kind of sees us as well, and the power of a newsroom in portraying that image more broadly. So to be able to be on a national platform in the newsroom, do you get a chance to kind of, bounce ideas around journo to journo and influence kind of stories that might be covered within Channel 9 or other projects?
Yeah, well, my day, the way it's structured, sort of means that I don't spend a great deal of time like in the newsroom itself. And so I get in and then I spend maybe like an hour to an hour and a half down in the dressing rooms getting hair and makeup done, wardrobe, reading through scripts and stuff before I go on set and do my entertainment news. There are certain editorial decisions that are made that, if you can sort of be involved in the meetings around them, the meetings for the production the next day, then you can sort of influence them in that way. But also Nine has just taken over or merged with Fairfax, I guess you would say, and they've got two incredible traineeships for Indigenous reporting. And, so that sort of stuff, I think I'll be able to help with a lot. And the way that, Aboriginal people are spoken about in news stories, and the way that the audience and we see ourselves it's really shaped by this stuff. I mean, we both are probably a bit biased because we studied communications, and so we know the power that the media holds in that way.
And we've also seen it recently with the Adam Goodes doco. And after Channel 10 aired it, there was a panel with Waleed Ali, and particularly talking about the power of media. And if media didn't perpetrate racism and their diatribe about what they thought it was, then maybe that wouldn't have gone on for Goodsy quite as long as it did. So it was interesting to see that discussion in a public forum about how media need to be really responsible in how you're reporting.
Yeah, absolutely. But even that as an issue obviously was perpetuated by it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It just sort of kept going and going and going. But even if you're a young Aboriginal girl in, Tamworth or something, and the only pictures you ever see of young Aboriginal women are like missing, or as as part of some sort of domestic violence story, or living in absolute despair, which is the sort of reporting that we've seen for the last 30 or 40 years. It shapes how you see yourself, because you think that, that's what my options are, that's what my life is. But we know, because we are young Aboriginal women, that it's not all despair and it's not all doom and gloom. I know that for some people that is their reality, and I don't want to take away from their experience, because, there are some people whose lives are really, really hard. But for a lot of us, there obviously are certain moments where things are challenging, and we do go through really, really awful times. But all of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women that I know have this unrelenting will to be happy and to survive and to like push through. And, you know, where are those stories? Where do we see those characters and those tales and those narratives? You know, they see them in us, hopefully. But that shapes the way that young people see themselves, I think.
Absolutely, and there are plenty of young women that would be watching you, and plenty of women our own age too, because we've interviewed quite a few women for the Real podcast so far. You've been referenced a couple of times, so how kind of proud people are that, you know, the path that you've taken and that we're going to be able to make change in this country through normalising Aboriginal people being fabulous and excellent at all that you do and whatever you choose to do.
Yeah, well, that's so lovely.
And so on that note, tell us about the fun stuff that you get to, you know, your social media looks like a lot of fun. You get to, you know, go on trips and meet celebrities and go to LA every other weekend and, you know, get to do red carpets and get fitted for fashion. Tell us a little bit about all that
all
fun
the cool stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's really fun. You know, the early mornings and, you know, tough stories and all that sort of stuff. It's you have to measure it against all of the really, really cool stuff that you get to do. And there is a lot of it. You know, I think that going to like fun parties where you get to meet and talk to really interesting people, or like talk to someone that you've admired for a really long time. Now, I know this is a bit of a goofy one, but I really love The Rock.
Lots of people do.
Yeah, we got to interview him last week. So I spoke to him, Idris Elba, and Jason Statham for the new Hobbs and Shaw movie.
Didn't your grandma want Idris Elba?
Yes,
photo?
I told him.
And?
Well, he was like, oh my gosh. And because my pop is like a big black man and Idris Elba is a big black man. And I was like, now Idris, like, I don't want to racially stereotype you, but my grandmother has a massive crush on you, but she has a type. Like, this is what my grandfather looks like. And he was like, oh my gosh. Like, I could tell that he was like, your grandmother is a pervert. But you know what? I'm sure it's not the first time that he's heard it as well. And my nanny is a little bit of a perv, you know, let's be honest. She's, you know.
Sorry, I took you off your rock story there. But yeah, I remember that post that we had to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, he did like that very much. But yeah, when you get to talk to people that you admire or you get to wear really beautiful clothes, like sometimes you have like pinch yourself moments where you're like, this is my life. Oh my gosh, what have I done to deserve this? Like I'm the luckiest girl in the world. You know, I got to go to the Oscars this year, which was really, really fun. You know, to stand on the red carpet and see all of those people close up. But one thing that I will say is that they are just really normal looking people, but with like heaps of makeup and like really beautiful clothes. So I think that if any of us got done up that much, that we would also look like movie stars. And if we had like personal trainers and, you know, like all of that sort of stuff.
Spend all that time on kind of self-care and management.
Exactly. Then we would all look like Kim Kardashian or, you know, whoever your thingy is, whoever your goal is, that's who you would look like.
Funnily enough, the Kardashians have also been referenced on this podcast. Goodness gracious. This is going to be a moment in time company. When we look back in 20 years that these are our cultural references.
People will be like, who?
And so your biggest fangirl moment so far?
My biggest fangirl moment... well, I got to meet Hanson, and that was one of those moments where I was like, wow, if I could just go back and tell 10-year-old Brooke that everything is going to be all right and that you just sort of keep your chin up and keep going, then one day you'll get to meet Taylor Hanson. Like, I just, she wouldn't believe it, obviously. But that was a real pinch myself moment. The other person who I met this year, who I didn't know a great deal about until I interviewed, was Brie Larson. Okay. She is so cool. She's like probably one of my, she's probably in my top 5 gals at the moment.
And what did you love about her?
She is just really progressive. She fights for women's rights, but not in the way that's like, hey, we're all women, we should band together. Like, hey, gals, let's like have a cocktail and talk about how our lives are tough. She just she actually just gets stuff done. So she puts in her rider that she, you know, wants to have a certain percentage of the cast be women, a certain percent of the crew are women. So she talks the talk, but she also walks the talk. And instead of like lamenting the fact that, you know, the world is a tough place for women, sometimes she actually just goes out there and does stuff about it.
There's some good tips where you can actually use your power and, you know, the systems around you to influence change.
Exactly. And it does change it because, you know, when there are more women around, obviously there's less likely that, you know, some of that stuff that's been going on in Hollywood is less likely to happen because you have more support around. And also just that someone didn't just close the door behind them once they got in. So she's not like, oh, yep, I'm a big star now. Bye, losers. Like, she's like, okay, yeah, let's keep the door open and, like, keep girls coming in. I really admire that.
So what would you put in your rider?
In my rider? Yep. Well, like, I really love I don't know how you would say it. How do you describe it? You know the thing that Supply Nation does where you, like, guarantee a certain percent?
Certified?
Not certified. It's where you, like, have a certain amount of your
target
expenditure is, like
a 3% target for spending with Aboriginal businesses.
Exactly, yes. I would do something like that because I think that has such an excellent payback system. So we know that, like, Indigenous businesses employ Aboriginal people, and then that money goes back into communities, and it's like a way that people can actually, like, help themselves without feeling like they're leaning on the government, and the government doesn't feel like, hey, we're doing you this massive favour. It's just, you know, a certain percentage of your spend. It's super easy, already spending the money anyway.
Great. We will look forward to Channel 9 spending some money with Indigenous businesses very soon.
I'll raise that with the boss.
But that's it. You've got that power now. How are you going to kind of use it, and what kind of different causes you're going to throw it behind? So that's a good one. Aboriginal businesses and procurement, and perhaps some more Indigenous people following your footsteps in media.
That was the word I was looking for.
Got there. Sorry.
But yeah, also, like, mentoring other young people who are trying to get in. I try to make as much time as possible to talk to people. It's so hard because I get so many requests from people who are like, what do you think? Or can we have a coffee? And I'm like, I haven't spoken to my mum in 2 weeks. Like, I don't know if I have time. But please know, okay, let's just do a scattergun approach. This is what I think. If you want to be in media, you want to do, like, television or radio as a career, know that you have to work incredibly hard. Don't expect anyone to be super, super nice to you. But if you are good and you work really hard, people will help you. And don't focus too much, even though I know this is really hard and I should take this advice myself. Don't focus too much on the people who are mean to you or racist or sexist or homophobic. Focus instead on the people who help you, because you'll be much happier and you'll do much better work. And ultimately, the thing that gets people in the door or in the hot seat, as it were, is talent and good work. So if you get there, you look after yourself and you do good work, you'll be right.
Very good advice there.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and especially for that kind of, you'll be happier, because you can get, you know, it's a hard path to get to where you are now, and there's lots of kind of hurdles along the way. So leaning in towards the things that make you happy and positive and keep moving forward. Yeah. And your tips that you've shared previously as well on kind of like self-care when it's a tough day, to get some sleep and, you know, eat well and, you know, go for a walk or something. We were literally just talking about this before we started recording. You were like, oh, you're wearing your activewear. And I was like, yes, because I didn't sleep well last night, but instead of having a nap today, I'm going to pull an all-dayer, as I say, and do some exercise this afternoon and go to bed early. Good girl.
Because I'm a good gal.
Yeah. And you need it. Sleep is wondrous.
I love sleep so much. I know this is not meant to be a grim statement, but one of my favourite times of the day is when I lay down at the end of the day and you just, like, drift off into that, like, half sleep, like that lucid state, and you're like, oh, I'm going to get 8 hours. I'm going to be so happy in the morning. It's such a good feeling, especially when you know that there are so many nights where you only get like 4 or 5 hours. If you can get like that 8 hours sleep. Oof.
We all know what that feels like, and we're all imagining it right now listening to you. And so what do you do when you're not working? What does a Sunday or a day off look like to you?
I try to do stuff like not look at my phone too much. So, you know, but leaving it at home or leaving it, you know, in my bedroom or whatever, so that I don't look at it. Because I do find that if I'm sitting there and I don't have plans and I open up Instagram or I start looking at Facebook, I'll sit there for 3 hours and then feel really guilty about having sat there for 3 hours doing nothing. So phone away, and then I try to get out and go for a walk, like get fresh air. I just love doing like normal stuff, like going for brekkie, going for a little walk or a hike or something. But I'm a big advocate of like just watching some Simpsons, you know, just like vegging a bit as well. Like there are some days where you feel like you don't want to sort of go out and like face the world or be social. And I think for me in particular, because I have to spend so much of my time being really super social, that when the opportunity comes up for me just to like lay there and watch Super Simpsons Saturday, I am so happy about it.
No, very good advice once again, and we can all relate to that, and we don't have to be on and so public as you do all the time, so I can certainly see that's part of what you need to do.
Yeah, because I feel like you're extroverted like me, but then occasionally you just like need to close off your energy and just sort of be in your own space.
Yep, and fill the cup back up, ready to go again the next week.
Yeah.
Now, the real is what we're called. What does the real Australia mean to you?
The real Australia mean to me? That's a tough one. I spent a lot of time thinking about that this year. I think it's a difficult place for a lot of people to be at the moment. And I think it's difficult because we're grasping with things that are central to our national identity. And we're sort of at this difficult time where there are a lot of people from minorities who have a lot more power and express themselves a lot more openly and a lot more loudly than what they have before. And so for a lot of people, it feels very divisive. And for another group of people, it feels like finally, you know, we're saying things that we've always felt or we've always thought. And so I think that for us, the difficult thing now is finding a way through that, you know, speaking and being heard, but also like listening and moving forward in a way that will satisfy people. So the real Australia for me is one that feels like it's a little bit of a complex place at the moment. And, you know, I feel like that's the whole world feels a little bit like that at the moment. And I don't know what it is about this time and this place, but I'm glad that I'm a part of it. I'm glad that I'm helping people decide how they feel about us and how they feel about themselves and you know, how we move through this. But, you know, I think that to be Australian at this time is it's a really, you know, I'm sure it's really difficult for some people because we're grasping with stuff that's, you know, we're sort of we've inherited this thing that is really difficult for so many people, and we're the ones who have to sort of deal with the mess of that. You know, it's like there's been this big party at someone's house where all the windows are broken and the walls got holes in them, and then we're the poor suckers who have to sort of clean up after it and figure out where we go to next. And yeah, so I think that's where I feel like we're at the moment, and I feel that deeply all the time.
And are you hopeful for the future?
I am hopeful. I think we've got to be, you know, and as difficult as it is sometimes to see really horrible phrases and sentiments expressed about me in particular, or about, you know, us more broadly, or about where we fit in this country, you know, I just have to think that 20 years ago, 2 women like us wouldn't be sitting here doing this. You know, there wouldn't have been that many young Aboriginal women running businesses and on TV and talking openly about how they feel about things without having to tread very, very carefully. So I know that the situation is dire for a lot of people, and I don't want to brush over that because their experience is real, and you know, people are being traumatized as we speak. But I am hopeful because we are moving forward, even if it is slowly.
And a final question. What is next for you?
I don't even know what's now for me.
Tell us what's coming up, or what the kind of next big step for you. Because it's not over. It's just the start, isn't it?
It is just the beginning. And, you know, I really want to be really great at my job. I want to be the very best version of myself that I can be. And so for me, this year has been about, it's been a very steep learning curve, and I hope that it continues to be very steep because I feel like I've got so much to learn about the audience that I'm speaking to, so much to learn about the show that I'm working on. And so much to learn about this great country. You know, every day I'm like, oh, maybe that's an interesting thing to think about, or maybe that's an interesting thing to talk about. So for me, I'm just going to keep plodding along, going for my little walks, eating my pies, watching my Simpsons, and just sort of trying to be a little bit healthier and a little bit better and a little bit kinder and a little bit stronger every single day. I'm really, really guilty of thinking like, oh, I wonder what's going to be in 5 years' time. I wonder what I'm going to be doing in 10 years' time. So much so that sometimes I forget that I'm actually in a really good and very fortunate place at the moment. So for me, just, keep pushing along.
Brooke Boney, thank you very much for joining us on The Real Podcast. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. You've been listening to The Real podcast series. The Real is an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander digital media platform produced by 33 Creative. This episode was recorded in Sydney on Gadigal country. Produced by Jake Keane and Marguerite Barbara. Music production by Jimbler. For more stories and podcasts, visit the-real.com.au/podcast.